Nevertheless, he says, in the field of moral policy, I dedicate this nation to the policy of the good neighbor, the neighbor who resolutely respects himself and because he does so, respects the rights of others. In fact, they do things to show that there's some follow-through here. Clearly. He pulls the Marines out of Haiti in 1934. Congress signs a treaty with Cuba which nullifies the Platt Amendment. The Platt Amendment was part of the Cuban Constitution, which said the United States can intervene if there's economic instability, and Congress signs a new treaty that disavows this. But does that mean the United States is going to let these nations do whatever they want? The answer to that is very simple. I mean, what you would suspect is no. Not. In fact, there's an uprising, there's an overthrow of the government in Cuba in 1933. And there are members of the Foreign Service advocating landing the Marines if we can. And Roosevelt resists. He says, no, we're not going to do that. But we'll send the Navy. We'll send the ships to Havana, and they can sit out there in the harbor, make it look like we're about ready to land if need be. And eventually, within a very short time, there is a new government, right, 34. There's a new government emerging which seems like it'll establish some stability. Now, the leader of that government is a man by the name of Batista. So what happens is, the process here is if the government is overthrown, if there's a threat, the United States will step up, look like they're going to get involved, threaten, make demands, until there's someone acceptable in power who can establish firm control of the country. So is that really being a good neighbor? Well, I guess it's up to you to decide. I would argue no, that the United States is still controlling what's going on in these countries. There's another, there are other examples. You might have heard of the Trujillo government, which is part of, comes to power at this time. So this idea of the good neighbor policy seems to be in question, and it's actually debated. You have historians who've written essays saying, yes, this is a distinctive change from the past. The United States is not landing the Marines every time. And then you have others saying, well, no, it's not that. It's just the style has changed. There's a new style here. You can use the presence of the military. You can use economic influence and control. And you can use political pressure. Right? And get the same result. And then say, see, we're letting them choose. And we're being a good neighbor. And how you interpreted this, of course, is obviously, you know how I'm interpreting it. But depends on what you look at. The problem is, where does the good neighbor policy end? Well, historians can't really answer that. We don't know. There is no break from the good neighbor policy, except we get very involved in the overthrow of Arbenz in Guatemala. So is that the breaking point? Or is it during World War II, where we really don't seem to care what's going on in Latin America as long as they're sending us raw materials and labor? Or does it just transition into something like the Alliance for Progress during the Kennedy administration? Or has it ever disappeared? It depends on how you describe the Good Neighbor policy. If you describe it a change in style, has it really changed at all? Because we still say, we want to be neighbors, good neighbors with Latin America. You're just in Washington, D.C., there's a nice, imposing building right near the mall, right across the street from the mall, Organization of American States, which would indicate that there's a close connection with Latin America. We're friends, right? Except, of course, with Venezuela and Cuba, other countries at different times, depending on what's going on there. And we still have a lack of knowledge about Latin America. We had a president who visited Brazil and made some silly comments showing surprise that there are black people in Brazil. Which is quite laughable because most of the Africans who were brought over as slaves, the vast majority of them went to Brazil. Only about, well, it's a very small percentage went to